So, good morning, friends. This is Sunil from Department of Human Resource Management. Today, we are going to discuss about management of unorganized labor. So, the nature of unorganized labor and characteristics of unorganized labor. We have an act called Unorganized Labor Act in the year of 2008. It was enacted in the year of 2008. The concept of informal or unorganized sector in India and world. The concept draws the attention in the year of 1970. ILO has initiated serious efforts to identify and study the area through its World Environment Program mission in Africa. Since then, informal sector has been identified areas of various aspects like this: the size and nature of employment and employment potential, relationship with the formal sector, and First National Commission on Labour in the year of 1969 under the chairmanship of Justice Gajendra Gatkar. So he defined the unorganized sector as part of the workforce. So casual nature of employment normally ignorance and illiteracy. There were a small size of establishments and with the low capital of investment. So they scattered nature of establishment and superior strength of employer. So these are the concepts. Now we'll discuss about nature of unorganized labor. The size and nature of unorganized labor, it was already there in the Indian Constitution. So according to the directive principles of our Indian Constitution, state is required to secure equal pay for equal work for both men and women. So clause D of the article 39 of Indian Constitution. So right to work part 5, part 4, directive principles of state policy of the Constitution under article 41. So right to education and public assistance in case of unemployment. So right of children to free and compulsory education act 2009 and employee state insurance act 1948 provides provisions for both men and women or organized or unorganized sectors. So these constitutional provisions reflect the concern of the state to protect and promote the interest of weaker sections of the population. So now we'll move on to the categorization of unorganized labor. So the categorization mainly it was defined for 4 parts. One is in terms of occupation and in the nature of employment and specially distressed categories. And fourth one is other categories like that. So in terms of occupation, so unorganized labor mainly, so they have a volatile nature. They don't have a proper workforce. So they don't have a proper occupation also. So small and marginal farmers. So we used to find it in agricultural labor, small agricultural labor and marginal farmers. So landless agricultural labor. So they used to they used to work in other lands. They don't have a own lands. So sharecroppers and fishermen and those engaged in animal husbandry and BD workers and BD rolling and packing and BD labeling workers is also comes under the occupational in terms of occupational categorization of unorganized labors. So building workers and construction workers and sawmills, building workers and construction workers and sawmills and oil mills and cigar workers. All these kind of workers comes under the occupational in terms of occupational workers. So we'll move on to the nature of employment. Based on the nature and based on the characteristic, it has been divided into 3 parts. So as we already discussed the occupation part, and now we'll move on to the employment, nature of employment part. So basically, 70% of the people in India are depending on agriculture sector. So main workforce is unorganized sector is agricultural labor, and next one is bonded labor. People being forced to work as a bonded labor. So in bonded labor, earlier days they used to run Andaman and other African. So in order to work as a sugarcane industries. So like migrant labor also. Nowadays we have been facing a problem for shifting one place to another place. So due to the COVID-19, so there is a lot of migrant workers are being facing a lot of problems. So contract laborers. So we have an act called Contract Labor Act is also is there. We have to follow the rules and regulations. The contractor has to register. There is a lot of processes there. So by utilizing the workers from the contractor. So casual labor is also there. Normally they used to have a casual nature in employment. So specially distressed categories and taddy toppers, scavengers, carriers of headloads, and drivers of animal driven vehicles. So drivers of animal driven vehicles is also comes under the listed categories, and especially scavengers. So those who are cleaning the septic tanks and all. So we have been watching the newspapers. So most of the people die this kind of sector, actually scavengers. So those who are working as a scavengers, they are sacrificing their lives. So another one is ladders and loaders and unloaders. So we have we will find in a construction labor, and loading and unloading which will happen in the these are also special distressed categories. And midwives, domestic workers, and fishermen and fisherwomen, and barbers, vegetable and fruit vendors. So these are these type of people are comes under the unorganized categorization of unorganized labor. So the main difference between organized and unorganized labor in India. So government sector. So people have been working in a government sector, they have a job security. So they may feel if they join in an organization, they may be likely to continue for 30 to 35 years. So they are secured for their families. So the people likes to prefer to work in government sector. So because they have a lot of benefits are there. So not only individual benefits, and is also family benefits and societal benefits is also there for the government sector. So employment is secure. In government sector, people has no need to worry for their jobs, and during the pandemic situation also they will get their salaries. So they have a life security. So employment is secure in normal nature, and terms of employment is regular basis. So they are regular, they are on roll basis, they are on board employees. The board is treating as an on board employees. Regulation of salary, they have been getting the wages and salaries for regular basis. So job security. So they have a job security also. Nobody forced them to leave the job. So only 10% of the population is included in it. So if you see unorganized labor and organized labor, so informal labor, what you call an informal labor. So all these categories of workers who are engaged in only 10% of the population is included organized labor. Remaining 90% of the people occupied by the unorganized labor only. So they have more perks and benefits like ESI, PF, and other benefits. Gratuity benefits are there. Other benefits also, maternity benefit. Other benefits also applicable to the government sector and public sector and multinational companies. Now we'll move on to the unorganized sector. So probably they are non-government or private sector employees, completely informal. So the nature of employment is completely informal. Whenever they work, they call and they'll complete their work and they'll get their salaries. So unorganized is completely informal and unorganized sector. Employment is not secure. So sometimes they may work for a seasonal employment. So rest of the months they have to struggle for their lives, for the livelihood. Terms of employment is not regular basis and irregular salaries. So when compared to the organized sector, they have a regular salaries. So they have a job security. Here there is no job security also. So they can be forced them to terminate the employment at any moment. So they may be terminate the employment if they like it, they'll continue the services. Otherwise, they'll terminate the employee without any reason. So 90% of the population is included in it. So if you observe, unorganized sector is providing best employment solution to the each and every person. Those are whether he may be a transgender or a woman or a widow or an other artisans, whatever whoever it may be, whatever it may be, the unorganized sector is providing more employment compared to the organized sector. 90% of Indian population is working in unorganized sector. So no extra benefits, no perks, no timings also. No hours of work is also there. So everything is there in the organized, and nothing is there in the unorganized sector. People have been protected for this. So if you go to the unorganized labor in India, so if you observe this diagram pie chart, so 24.6 crores of agricultural labor working in agriculture sector, and 4.4 crores working in construction workers, and other workers is also is there for the contributing the unorganized sector, and informal workforce. When we talk about the informal workforce, is the street vendors, daily labor, and other artisans and salesmen, manufacturing, informal workforce. So other workforce is also engaged in the informal workforce. So unorganized labor in India, more than 90% occupied in different segments, which provides employment to 90% population, remaining 10% in organized sector. So if you observe Indian GDP scenario, so if you observe 50% of the revenue is generated by the unorganized sector. So as we talk about the in India, so maybe millionaires are only for the whatever the money is there in India, it is lies with the only for the 10% people in India. That 10% people will not generate only they could generate only 10% of the employment. But whereas in 50% revenue is generated by the unorganized sector, and it also provides 90% of employment opportunities in India. So if you observe, organized sector provides only for 10% of employment share occupied by the formal sector. So if you observe Indian entire GDP, gross domestic product, it depends upon the informal way only. Informal means that means unorganized sector. So characteristics of unorganized labor. So many efforts have been made to identify characteristics of employment in the unorganized sector. So based on these characteristics, low level of organizations, because whoever wants to have an entrepreneurship, they have a low level of organization. They have a hierarchy. Their hierarchy system, their capital system, their investment is very low, and compared to the other multinational companies and other brand image companies are like that. So there are people who are engaged in unorganized sector is also they have a casual labor relations. They don't have a proper direct relationship, employer and employee relationship. There is no employer and employee relationship, and there is no direct relationship with the master and servant relationship is also. So small owned account or family owned enterprise are micro enterprises. So basically their nature are casual. Small owned account or family owned enterprises are micro enterprises. So nowadays we used to talk about micro enterprise businesses. So small owned account means, so in Germany in the year of 1935, so when the industrialization began, so they have a cottage industry system. Earlier they used to have a cottage industry, then they shifted to cottage industry to small and medium industries, and then it was spread to the all over the world. So now they are becoming a multinational companies. So likewise, family owned businesses, so likely cottage industries to bigger industries. So micro enterprises, small and medium enterprises, micro enterprises. So all these workers comes out of the unorganized labor. So ownership of fixed and other assets by self-employment. So there is no manager system, there is no ambience, there is no environment, there is no other sort of benefits also. People who are engaged for their casual in nature. So involvement of family members. So if any industry, cottage industry is there, or the family owned business is there, the more involvement of family members all together work for the success of the business. So easy entry and exit, free mobility. They have a free accessibility, free mobility to purchase the products, goods and services, and if they want to likely to reduction of the price, they can take immediately. So they can give the orders. So use of indigenous resources and technology. So absence of fixed working hours. So absence of fixed working is also, so people used to work for longer hours. That means, so as per the fact is that they have to work for 9 hours in a day. So they may be extended for 13 hours or 14 hours. So earlier days they used to have that kind of work. And especially Factories Act, when the Factories Act is commenced in the year of 1981. So those times they are mainly fighting for hours of work only. So unregulated and unprotected nature of work is also there in the unorganized sector. So characteristics of unorganized labor. So they have a lack of employment, security and social security, use of labor intensive technology, lack of support from government. The government is not willing to give any support to the so small and medium enterprise or micro entrepreneurship or cottage industries. So National Commission on Labor in the year of 2002 under the chairmanship of Rabindra Verma in 1969, has a broad, the more general characteristics of the enterprise or employment in unorganized sector. So it is in general in low wage and low earning sector. So basically it is a low wage and low earning sector. So migrant labor is involved in some subsectors also, and they may be paid for piece rate system and seasonal employment. So seasonal employment normally we may find it MNREG, Mahatma Gandhi Rural Employment System. So there the 100 days program is there. They have to provide, the government has to provide 100 days program for seasonal employment. So likewise, piece rate system, we have a time rate system. FW Taylor has proposed piece rate system and time rate system. So time rate system, those who are working for on roll basis, they have been following time rate system, piece rate system. That means, so productivity linked bonus system. Whatever the product you have given to the company, that product is only that product only you are paying for the salaries, wages, and salaries. So that means daily wage workers. And more involvement in hazardous process. People who are unorganized sector like scavengers and other working in industries. So mainly they may be placed in hazardous process because they don't have a they don't have a regular basis amount. So they may be engaged in a hazardous process like chemical industries, oil industries, and steel industries, so cement industries. So we have an act called Unorganized Workers Social Security Act in the year of 2008. It was enacted in the year of 2008. So it provides enacted to provide for the social security and welfare of the unorganized worker, home-based workers, self-employed workers for daily wage workers, includes a worker in the organized sector who is not covered by any of the acts pertaining to welfare schemes as mentioned in the Schedule 2 of the Unorganized Workers Social Security Act 2008. The Act provides for constitution of National State Social Security Board of the central state level to recommend social security schemes like life and disability cover. So we have a act called, so Employee Compensation Act is there. So ESI Act is there. So there is different benefits are there. Maternity benefit are there. Sickness benefit are there. Disability benefit are there. Partial disablement or total disablement benefit are there. Or funeral benefits are there. So likewise, old age and sickness benefit and protection and any other benefits as may be determined by the government for unorganized workers. Act also provides for registration of unorganized workers. Registration of unorganized workers. So now we'll move on to the applicability of the labor laws. So what are the acts it talks about unorganized labor? So which are the acts is providing security to the unorganized labor? The following labor laws are applicable to the workers in unorganized sector. The Workmen Compensation Act 1923, now it has changed to the Employee Compensation Act. So, Payment of Wages Act, in the year of 1936, they have enacted the Payment of Wages Act. So, they ensure that payment should be, there is no discrimination while paying the wages and salaries to the men and women. So, Minimum Wages Act 1948. So, Employee State Insurance Act, as we already discussed, there are 5 to 6 benefits are there. Old age benefit are there, sickness benefit are there. So, disablement benefit are there, funeral benefit are there, recreational facilities are there. So, there is a lot of benefits are there. So this act is also simultaneously applied for Workman Compensation or Employee Compensation Act. If the Employee Compensation Act is came into enforce while if the worker wants to utilize, so ESI is not applicable. So if ESI they may utilize, the Employee Compensation Act is not applicable under the injuries and personal injuries or any disability or sickness benefits or maternity benefit. So this act, this ESA Act has a special provision, that means unemployment allowance. Only this act is providing unemployment allowance. That means, so during the break of the services, they may be provided for unemployment assistance. Maternity Benefit Act. So in the year of 1965, it has been enacted in the year of 1965. So maternity benefit is also, the woman has to work for 80 days. So there is a prenatal and postnatal system is there. 26 weeks she may get 26 weeks of leave. So in case of miscarriage, 1 month is there. So if it is nursing breaks, 15 months they have to pay for the maternity benefit. So all these things will be calculated and they will be given to the women who are working for organizations. They may be she may get the avail the opportunity. She may avail the maternity benefit also. So Payment of Gratuity Act 1972. So this act is applicable 10 or more employees working in organization. The minimum service has to provide 5 years of continuous services required on account of retirement, on account of death, on account of transfer. So whatever it may be, they may be utilized because the minimum service is 5 years of service is required. In case of death, it is not required. So, Personal Injuries Compensation Insurance Act 1963. So, this is also simultaneously coordinated with the Employee Compensation Act. So, Employees Provident Fund and Miscellaneous Provisions Act in the 1952, the act enacted to provide 20 or more workers working in establishments and factories. Small units remain out of the ambit of the act. So, they may be excluded for the small units. As we talk about the cottage industry, small and medium industry, micro entrepreneurs, they may be excluded from this act. So, thank you once again.